Welcome back to the Productive Life podcast. In this episode, I'm sharing my top 7 tips for being productive while working at home. Whether you've been working from home for a long time or you are brand new to it, this episode will help you stay focused and still get your work done despite all of the distractions that surround you when you're trying to work from home. Welcome to the Productive Life podcast hosted by me, Megan Minns. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to be more productive in their business and their personal life. Because as a business owner, your business and personal life are connected, and we can't talk about one without talking about the other. Each week, you'll learn about productivity, organization, personal development, self-care, business strategies, and more. And now, let's get started. Recording this episode, we've actually been self-quarantined for 4 to 5 weeks at this point because of COVID-19. And while I don't think being as productive as possible is the number one priority during a global pandemic, or the standard we should hold ourselves to, the reality is that a lot of us do actually still need to get work done during this time. We can't just flake out entirely. And sometimes we have a lot we want to get done during this time period. So wherever you are on the spectrum, just know I'm not saying you shouldn't be as humanly productive as possible, but I understand that we still need to get work done sometimes. So this episode is going to help you whether you are currently self-quarantined, whether you work from home all the time, or you're brand new to it. And even though I have been working from home since about late 2015, it's still not always easy. Every day isn't perfectly focused and productive, and I actually go through these 7 tips myself. Like anytime I'm struggling to work from home, this is what I do, which is why I'm sharing it with you. So let's go ahead and dig into my favorite tips for being productive while working from home. Tip number 1 is to plan your day the night before. The best way to ensure that you're focused during the day is to have a game plan in advance. And especially when you work from home and you don't have a plan, it's so easy to, get distracted by the dishes or just being tired and wanting to watch Netflix or feeling a little scattered. It's an adjustment. And so having a game plan the night before is critical. And I do recommend you plan the night before because it means that when you wake up the next day, all you have to do is follow the plan. Doesn't that sound nice? You don't have to waffle back and forth, jump around, figure out what to do, which is so hard to do in the morning. Instead, if you make those decisions the night before, you'll make them with your goals and your projects and your priorities in mind. And the next day, all you need to do is just check the boxes and follow the plan. So if you're not familiar with how to plan your day the night before, I actually have another YouTube video about it that I will link in the description below. But I'm going to give you an overview right now of how I recommend you plan your day the night before. So there's a few simple steps involved. So the first thing you want to do is open up your calendar. So if you're using Google Calendar or a planner, whatever your system is, open up your calendar, look at tomorrow's date, and go ahead and look at what you already have committed to, be aware of that, and go ahead and plan in when do you want to eat lunch? When do you want to take a break? When do you want to stop working? And add that stuff to your calendar first. I always start with the breaks and the personal things before we actually fill in any work stuff because you are a human being who has needs. So let's go ahead and figure out, when are you going to start working, when are you going to stop, and what breaks are going to happen in between. Once those are there, you can look at what meetings and appointments you already have on the calendar and assess if those still work for you. Are there any of them that you need to reschedule or move around or cancel? This is a great time to do it the day before because even though last minute cancellations aren't great, the night before is better than the day of. It's better than being late. It's better than sacrificing what you need to be doing. So I always recommend you at least confirm the night before if those still work for you and identify what you need to do before each meeting. So if you have a client call the next day and you want to spend at least 30 minutes preparing for that, go ahead and add that prep time to your calendar for tomorrow. So with the meetings and appointments in mind, is there, a commute? If you are going and running an errand, is there prep for a meeting? Do you need to review notes? Do you need to get ready? Especially when you're working from home, if you're going to be doing, a Zoom call, you need a few minutes to get things set up. So go ahead and add that to your calendar next. And then once we're there, I want you to go ahead and look at your 1 year and 90-day goals. Review them. look at them. Where are you compared to where you want to be? How is that feeling? What projects are you currently working on? How's the progress moving on those? And what high priority tasks need to get done today to keep moving things forward? Once you have a clear idea of what those high priority tasks are, I want you to add blocks of time to your calendar tomorrow for when you're going to do them. Now, I know if you aren't a big planner, this might feel like something you would never want to do, but trust me, it's so helpful because you're going to actually start to estimate how long something is going to take and start to see if it's really all possible. Like with the blocks you have open, can this all happen? And we want to get this awareness in advance instead of figuring it out the same day. So this is where you'll make adjustments at this point. So you'll either need to delegate things to someone else on your team. You'll need to reschedule it and reset the expectation of when it's going to get done. You may just decide it doesn't need to really get done at all. Or you may decide you actually do need to reschedule a call or an appointment. All the options are there for you. Maybe you even realize you don't have an hour and a half to do that blog post. You only have 30 minutes. And so you're just going to do what you can in 30 minutes. That's great. So that is important. That's like why we do this the night before, especially. It's not just to wake up and know what to do. It's because when you have this game plan, you're going to be really intentional with your time the next day. And it makes staying focused way easier because you understand why you're focusing on what you are in the first place. So that is how I recommend you plan your day the night before. Once it's all on the calendar and the high priority tasks are there first, you can fill in any gaps you need to, and then close your laptop because you are done. So now you have your day planned, you can just wake up the next day and do your best to stick to your plan as much as possible. So that was tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to turn off your notifications. So when it's time to get work done, you truly have to turn off notifications. They will absolutely interrupt you. So that means like quit Slack, like actually close the application of Slack. Put your phone and your computer in do not disturb mode. Close tabs that often distract you. Mute your phone. And just literally any notification you can that's electronic, absolutely turn it off. And on top of that, when you're working from home, sometimes turning off notifications also means your environmental notifications, as I call them. So the people around you, or if you have family members or roommates that are with you, tell them, hey, I'm actually about to do 2 hours of focused work. Please don't interrupt me unless it's an emergency. And just ask them for that support. They will most likely want to support you in that way. So just loop in the people in your environment. And another thing I think is great is to put on headphones. Headphones are so critical for not only turning off the environmental noises and distractions around us, but I find like the mental shift that happens when you put headphones on is really significant. And then same thing, turn off your TV when you're trying to do really focused work. Are there things that are visually distracting you? How can you remove those visual distractions? Even just shutting the door of the room you're in, if you can do wonders for mental focus and subtly letting other people know you don't want to be interrupted right now. Tip number 3 is to take breaks. One of my favorite parts of working from home is that coffee, snacks, lunch, and even happy hour are just a few steps away. Instead of using breaks to avoid being focused, we do want to build them into the plan for your day, like we talked about in tip number 1. So after you've been focused for an hour, go get up, stretch your legs, get a snack or a drink, pet your dog, do something kind of fun for 5 to 15 minutes that makes you feel really happy and makes you smile. And then you can go back to work with a smile on your face. So I don't like taking breaks where you're just like mindlessly scrolling through Instagram because it doesn't necessarily like fill you back up. It's just kind of depleting you. So I really like to be intentional, especially on days where I'm struggling to stay focused and there's a lot I want to get done by the end of the day. Trying to do things that make me happy can really help. And so even though scrolling on Instagram might feel like it depletes me, scrolling on TikTok makes me laugh. It's super fun. But I know that it can be really hard to only be on TikTok for 5 to 10 minutes. So I have to be really careful. But either way, taking breaks is critical to being productive while you're working from home. Tip number 4 is to use the Pomodoro technique. This is my go-to method whenever I'm struggling with procrastination and I want to get more done and stay more focused. If you're not familiar with the Pomodoro technique, I actually have a YouTube video and a blog post all about it where I go in depth that I will share in the description below. But in short, all you need to do is pick one thing to do, like one task that's on your to-do list, set a timer for 25 minutes, commit to going in full do not disturb mode. So like I said earlier, all the notifications off, phone muted, no one can reach you for 25 minutes, and focus exclusively on that one task for the next 25 minutes. It's super simple, but you will surprise yourself by how much you can get done in just 25 minutes when you let yourself have full attention on the task at hand. I often plan my whole day in Pomodoros. So even right now, I know how many Pomodoros I have to record the podcast episodes I'm recording. So that layer can also come into your planning, but even if it doesn't, the Pomodoro technique can be a great thing you do in the middle of the day when you're like, I need help. Okay, let's pick one thing, set the timer for 25 minutes and go. I even do this for housework, folding laundry, things like that. 25 minutes, I can do anything. So definitely recommend it. Tip number 5 is to change up where you work. So if you're working from home and maybe you're self-quarantined like I currently am, or you're social distancing, you can still change up where you work. So if society is normal, changing up where you work can mean leaving and going to a coffee shop or a library or somewhere where you can work. But in our current times, it can mean just changing rooms, leaving my desk in my office and going to sit on the couch, or leaving the couch and going to work from my bed if I need something extra cozy, or sitting at the dining room table. Just these simple shifts, whether it's rooms or where you're sitting or how you're sitting, can make a huge difference and also feel like they inject your day with a little bit more variety and interest, and just kind of nurture you while you're working. I definitely change locations multiple times throughout the day when I need it. And so I want you to leverage the space you have. Even if it's not a big space, chances are there are still a few different places you could be moving your computer around to, change things up and make you feel a little bit refreshed and renewed while you're sitting there and working. Tip number 6 is to create a workspace you enjoy. So whether you have a desk or you're working from your table or a couch, wherever you are working, I recommend that you kind of create a little workspace that really delights you. And what delights you is going to be different for every person. So for me, that means having a salt lamp and some crystals and a mostly clean space. When my desk is too cluttered, it really bothers me. Those are my essential things. Maybe some chapstick and my journal nearby. When I'm in my full office, I have things on the wall that really inspire me. But even when I go and sit on the couch to work, I'll bring a couple crystals, which may sound really silly, but it's something about the visual reminder of oh, I just love this. This is so nice. I like the way this makes me feel. I like what this reminds me of. So for you, that could be just having a lamp on instead of just having overhead lights, or being near a window, or having photos or crystals. Anything like that can really add a little bit of delight and enjoyment into your workspace, as well as ergonomics. Now, what you have at home is going to shift depending on what you have at home. I just repeated myself. But what I mean is that if you have a sit and stand desk, this is easier. You might find that your current ergonomics are actually really bad. So you might find that the chair you're currently sitting at your desk is really injuring your back or giving you potential carpal tunnel. You might realize that your eyes are looking at your computer screen the wrong way. And what ergonomics mean, if you're not familiar, is it's just making sure that your body is in a posture while you're working that doesn't do any damage. So there's all these theories with ergonomics about your eyes should be at the top. Sorry if I'm wrong, be sure to look it up. But it's I think it's the top, 2/3 of your computer screen is where your eyes should be. So a lot of times desktop monitors, especially since I'm tall, are too low. So I need a riser for my screen to be the actual right height. Otherwise I'll be slumped and hunched over. Or you might realize your elbows are at the wrong angle, or you're hurting your wrists. So If you're sitting on the couch, ergonomics can be a little trickier, but be aware of them, especially when you're working from home on an ongoing basis. Sitting at your dining chair every day, all day, probably isn't going to be good for you in the long run. So maybe that means you need to get a seat cushion. Maybe you need to get a different chair. Sometimes when I started working from home, I did make some investments to make my workspace as ergonomically friendly as possible, but you don't always have to. You can kind of make do with what you have by even propping your laptop up on some books. So be creative. But I also want to say, with the workspace you enjoy, it needs to also physically support you. And there's no wrong way to have a workspace. It can be messy, it can be clean, but putting time into creating a workspace you enjoy that supports you physically and inspires you mentally, I think is really critical when you're working from home on an ongoing basis. And my last tip is to set the mood. So again, this will look different for everyone depending on what kind of mood you want while you're working. Maybe you just want to feel real cozy, so you want a blanket and slippers, and you want to wear a cozy sweater, and you want to sit on the couch. That's great. Go do that if that's your ideal work environment. Maybe you need white lights instead of yellow lights because it helps you be more focused and engaged. Maybe you really want to have your favorite drink, whether it's coffee or wine or tea or sparkling water. There's no wrong answer, but having your favorite drink really adds this layer of just delight to your focus time. And it can really help boost the overall experience. Nothing makes me happier when I'm working than when I have my favorite drink and I have music that makes me feel really good. So it's either my favorite songs that are really upbeat, or maybe there's songs that are a little bit more chill so I can be calm, or maybe I'm trying to be really focused, so I'll listen to music that doesn't have any words. So your mood can shift based on what you're trying to achieve in this focus work block. Maybe you need to be really energized. Maybe you really want to be relaxed and creative. So tip number 7 in particular might vary a lot based on when you're working and what you're trying to do, but I always recommend you take it into account. Do what you can to make working feel as enjoyable as possible. So those are my 7 tips for being more productive while you're working from home. As a recap, that was tip number 1, plan your day the night before. Tip number 2, turn off notifications. Tip number 3, take breaks. Tip number 4, use the Pomodoro technique. Tip 5, change where you're working. Tip number 6, create a workspace you enjoy. And tip number 7, set the mood. If you want even more information on how to work from home and be productive, be sure to check out my new work from home guide. This is a great resource for you, whether you are brand new to working from home or just looking to get more done while you're working from home. Click the link beneath this video or podcast, and you will be able to find the link to go ahead and get that freebie. And I do have a free training I want you to know about as well. So if you go to meganmins.com/training, you'll get access to my free on-demand webinar about how to achieve your goals while working less and having more fun. And if you're interested in high-level coaching from me, I recommend you go to meganmins.com/apply, where you can learn about my brand new high-level group coaching program, where you can get access to weekly coaching calls from me, a curated group of online business owners who are like you, and all the details you need to learn more about this and either get on the wait list or apply. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to chat with you in the next one. Thank you for listening to the Productive Life Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much to me if you would share your biggest takeaway on your Instagram stories or wherever you hang out. This helps me understand what you find the most helpful so that I can make more episodes and resources like this. If this podcast has helped you at all, please take just 1 minute to leave a review on iTunes so that we can help spread the word about the Productive Life Podcast with others who may enjoy it. And last but not least, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get the latest episodes sent to you directly. To learn how to work with me one-on-one or get instant access to freebies, trainings, templates, workshops, and more, be sure to go to meganmins.com right now. I'll see you in the next episode.